Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I'm 15 years old and live with my mom. We're pretty close, and she usually trusts my judgment on things. About 3 weeks ago, our old cleaning lady quit. She was amazing, one of the nicest people you'd ever meet. My mom found a replacement pretty quickly, but that turned out to be a huge mistake. 2 weeks ago, this new cleaning lady started working for us. Right from day one, I could tell something was off about her attitude. She acted like she owned the place and seemed to think she could make decisions about our house without asking. The first day she came was a Monday when school was closed for Indigenous Peoples Day. Since schools were off, she brought her kid with her, didn't ask my mom or anything, just showed up with him. My mom was understanding about it though. The cleaning lady asked if I could hang out with her kid while she worked. I figured why not, since I didn't have any plans anyway. Her son seemed like a decent kid, maybe 8 or 9 years old. I was in my room when I heard the cleaning lady tell him he could do something, but I couldn't make out what she said. Next thing I know, I hear footsteps running up the stairs, and then the sound of my Xbox turning on. I went to check what was happening. The kid was sitting at my gaming setup, loading up Call of Duty. Now, this game is way too mature for someone his age, plus he was using my stuff without permission. I politely asked him to get off my Xbox. He said his mom told him he could use it. I explained that even though his mom said he could, this was my Xbox and he needed to ask me to. I told him if he had asked me first, I might have said yes. The kid was actually really cool about it. He apologized and said he understood. He got off the Xbox without any fuss and sat down at my desk to do some homework he brought. I was impressed. Most kids would have thrown a tantrum. But when his mom came upstairs to clean my room, everything went sideways. She asked her son why he wasn't playing on the Xbox anymore. He explained that I said he couldn't play because he didn't ask me first. That's when she absolutely lost it. She started screaming at me about how I dared to boss around her child. I tried to explain that it was my Xbox and that he needed to ask me before using it. I also mentioned that he was trying to play Call of Duty, which was too mature for him. That made her even angrier. She yelled about why I had mature games on my Xbox and said it was unacceptable. She threatened to tell my mother and said I wouldn't go unpunished. I just told her to go ahead. She walked out of my room after that. Her kid looked embarrassed and apologized for his mom's behavior, saying she could be difficult sometimes. I told him it was okay. I felt bad for him. No 8-year-old should have to apologize for their mother's behavior. About 10 minutes later, she came back into my room with this smug look. She claimed my mother had told her I had to give her my Xbox and that it belonged to her son now. I told her I didn't believe her and refused to give her anything. Her son actually spoke up and said he didn't want my Xbox and asked her not to take it, but she insisted they were taking it home and told him to remind her to come back for it later. After she left the room, the kid whispered to me that he wouldn't remind her because her memory was really bad anyway. I was starting to like this kid more and more. The rest of the day went by without any more drama. When they left, I immediately went downstairs to tell my mom what had happened. Then I got her side of the story. The cleaning lady had told my mom that I cussed her out and was bullying her son, which was complete nonsense. I told my mom what really happened, and she believed my version. While she wasn't mad at me about how I handled the situation, she was annoyed that I had mature games like Call of Duty. She reminded me that I'm only 15. She also confirmed that she never said anything about giving away my Xbox. She actually praised me for how I handled the confrontation, which was surprising since I'm usually terrible at dealing with conflict. Despite everything that happened, my mom decided to give the cleaning lady one more chance. She would come back the following week. Fast forward to the next week, and I was nervous all day at school. There was nobody home except our cat, which meant the cleaning lady was alone in our house. She was gone by the time my mom and I got home. The first thing I did when I got home was check my room. Sure enough, my Xbox was gone. But that wasn't all, my monitor was missing too. I was furious. This lady had actually stolen my stuff. I told my mom immediately, and she called the cleaning lady right away. When my mom confronted her about the missing Xbox and monitor, the woman acted like she had no idea what we were talking about. She accused us of trying to frame her and claimed we were damaging her reputation. We laughed at her ridiculous response and explained all the evidence we had. She went quiet for a few seconds before hanging up on us. The next day, while we were eating dinner, the doorbell rang. When we answered it, there was a man holding an Xbox that looked exactly like mine. He introduced himself as the cleaning lady's husband and said he had my Xbox with him. He explained that the cords and monitor were in his car and went to get them. After he returned all the stolen items, he told us what had happened. He said he had asked his wife about the Xbox and monitor, and she claimed it was a gift for their son for being such a good boy. But he got suspicious when he saw the cords still plugged in and the Xbox out of its box. Later that evening, their son came to him and told him the whole story about what had happened the week before. The husband put two and two together. When his wife was out cleaning another house, he gathered up all the stolen items and brought them to us. He said he had to hurry home before she got back and discovered what he had done. After he left, my mom called the cleaning lady and fired her. Yesterday, the police showed up at our door. They said there had been a report of stolen property at our address. The cleaning lady had actually called the police to try to get back the stuff she had stolen from us. We told the officers the entire story. They were angry that she had wasted their time but thanked us for explaining everything. They said they were going to her house to have a stern talk with her. Just when we thought that was finally it, we got court papers in the mail. The cleaning lady was suing us for stolen property, defamation of character, and verbal abuse. She was still sticking to her fake story about me bullying her son. The amount she was demanding was $11,000, plus she wanted her so-called property back. We started preparing for what we knew would be a big court battle. This woman clearly wasn't going to stop until she got the stuff she had stolen back. A few days later, I was home alone when something crazy happened. I didn't know what the date on the court papers meant until it was too late. I was just sitting in the living room eating a snack when there was a loud knock at the door. I went to see who it was. It was the cleaning lady. I opened the door and asked if I could help her. She immediately demanded to know where the Xbox and money were. When I asked her what she meant, she explained that my deadline to give it to her was yesterday. That's when I realized what the date on the court papers meant. She told me to give her the Xbox and money right now. I asked her what made her think I would give her anything. She said it was because she told me to. I laughed and told her to come up with a better excuse, then said I'd see her in court. I tried to close the door, but she grabbed me and stopped me. She said I wasn't going anywhere until I got her money and her son's Xbox. I told her she wasn't going anywhere either. I reminded her that my mom had fired her, so she wasn't even allowed to be on our property. I said I was going to call the police for trespassing. I also told her she had no authority over me and I wouldn't be getting anything for her. I quickly slammed the door and called the police. The whole time she was banging and throwing herself against the door, screaming and crying. Unfortunately, she left before the police arrived. I stupidly didn't look at what car she was driving or try to get her license plate number. The civil hearing was scheduled for the following week. When the day came, we went to the courthouse and took our seats. They brought in the cleaning lady wearing full prison clothes and handcuffs, escorted by 2 police officers. Based on that, she must have been a huge pain to the justice system, which wasn't hard to believe. Her lawyers started with their opening statement that went on for 25 minutes about her being innocent, her life story, and other nonsense. You could tell her lawyer knew he was going to lose badly. He was supposedly one of the top lawyers in the city, so wasting time on a case like this was clearly annoying him. Our attorney made a 5-minute statement that made it very clear we were going to win. The cleaning lady kept interrupting and yelling about how we were lying. All of her objections were overruled by the judge. This went on throughout the entire case. When the jury came back with their verdict, they had unanimously decided we didn't have to give her anything. Then came her punishment. She had to repay her salary to us, pay the total retail cost of all the items she stole, and cover all our court fees for both this hearing and the upcoming criminal trial. Altogether, this totaled close to $15,000. This whole thing had escalated from a simple disagreement about using my Xbox to a full court case. The cleaning lady's sense of entitlement was unlike anything I'd ever seen. She genuinely believed she could steal from us and then sue us when we got our stuff back. Her own son and husband ended up being the ones who helped us get justice. This happened during my senior year of high school when I was 17. I was flying from Baltimore to Boise to visit my grandmother, with stops in Pittsburgh and Las Vegas. My parents had saved up for months to buy me this ticket because we weren't exactly well off, and this was going to be my last chance to see Grandma before graduation in college. I'd never flown alone before, but my dad had been a commercial pilot for 30 years, so I knew the basics. He'd told me all about how Southwest lets you pick your own seats and gave me tips about getting comfortable on long flights. Since I'm pretty tall and skinny, he suggested I try to get a window seat in the back, where it's usually quieter. The first leg from Baltimore was almost empty. I grabbed the last row by the window, put in my earbuds, and took a nap until Pittsburgh. When we landed in Pittsburgh, I had to use the bathroom while other passengers were boarding for the next leg. To save my spots, I left my backpack in the seat and draped my jacket over it before heading off. When I came back from the bathroom, I saw something that made me mad. A pregnant woman was sitting in my window seat with her husband in the aisle seat. My jacket was thrown on the floor in the aisle, and my backpack with my laptop inside was shoved underneath it. I was pretty annoyed but tried to be polite. I pointed out that I had been sitting in the window seat and asked if I could have it back. The pregnant woman got aggressive immediately and snapped that she was pregnant and needed the seat more than I did. I turned to her husband and asked if he could maybe scoot over so I could at least sit next to the window. This guy looked me right in the eyes and told me that passengers were allowed to choose their own seats and he had chosen the aisle seat. He wasn't moving. Being just a high school senior, I wasn't exactly intimidating and I realized this was a losing battle. I gritted my teeth and collected my stuff, moving to the dreaded middle seat. The second I sat down, the woman told me I couldn't keep my backpack in my seat and needed to find somewhere else to put it. I explained that I was just going to put it under my seat. She immediately complained that she needed that space for her feet. I told her she wasn't putting her feet under my seat. Now, I'll admit that growing up, I swore more than most people and only watched my language at school. Suddenly, I felt someone grab my collar. The husband yanked me inches from his face and threatened me, saying I better not use that language around his wife or the baby, and demanded I apologize. I was shocked. Not only was this guy physically grabbing me in public, but I was only 17 and still considered a minor. Not wanting to escalate things, I gave the most half-hearted apology possible to the woman and put my earbuds back in when we prepared for takeoff. While we were taxiing, the woman kept trying to get my attention by yelling in my ear and snapping her fingers in front of my face. Finally, she actually pulled my earbuds out of my ears. She demanded that I turn off my electronics during takeoff. Now, my dad had told me that electronics don't actually interfere with communications, and it's mostly just a formality so people pay attention to safety instructions. Since we were literally less than a minute from takeoff, I ignored her. This sent her into a rage. She started frantically pressing the flight attendant call button until one came over. We even had to delay takeoff until this issue was resolved. When the flight attendant rushed over expecting an emergency, the woman dramatically declared that I was refusing to turn off my electronics and was trying to kill everyone on the plane. Everyone was staring at us now. When the flight attendant asked me to turn it off, I complied. After I turned it off, the woman started lecturing me about how she was right and I was wrong, going on and on about how the flight attendant had proved her point. Once we were in the air and the intercom announced we could use electronics again, I put my earbuds in and cranked up the volume. About 5 minutes later, I felt aggressive tapping on my shoulder. I turned to look at the woman. She told me I needed to turn the music down because it was bad for her baby. While I was listening louder than normal, it definitely wasn't at a level where an unborn baby could hear or understand it. I was so shocked that I just said no. But the second she reached for the flight attendant button again, I said I would turn it down. I did that trick where you turn your volume down 2 notches and then back up 1 so it looks like you turned it down 3 times. I asked if that was better. She demanded I turn it down more, so I went down one more click. Before I could put my earbuds back in, she told me that it was proper etiquette to talk to the people sitting next to you. I just ignored her. I leaned back and tried to close my eyes. Amazingly, I actually fell asleep for about an hour of the 5-hour flight. When I woke up, I discovered this woman had her foot resting on my backpack that contained my laptop. I adjusted my foot position to make it uncomfortable for her to keep her feet where they were. She immediately stood up and I thought she was going to start yelling again, given her talent for overreacting. But it turned out she was just going to the bathroom. When she squeezed past me and her husband, a brilliant idea popped into my head. The second she stepped into the bathroom, I got ready to move my stuff over to the window seat. When I grabbed my backpack and started shifting over, I felt a hand grab me. I hadn't thought about the husband. He told me I wasn't taking his wife's seat. I warned him that he was grabbing a minor and that I could cry out that he was attacking me if I wanted to. He immediately let go and I moved over to the window seat I'd originally had. When she came back from the bathroom, she was furious. She demanded that I move back to the middle seat immediately, getting so loud that a flight attendant came over to see what was happening. This time, the flight attendant sided with me. When the woman asked her husband to make me move, I stared him down, and he went back to reading his book. She had to sit in the middle seat. I was thankful I'd moved because she was up and down constantly, going to the bathroom every 15 minutes for the rest of the flight. The only other incident was when she intercepted my bag of pretzels when the drink cart came around. I responded by closing the window shade when we started our descent into Las Vegas. Once we got off the plane, I went to Burger King to grab a drink and some food before finding my next gate. I spotted the last available seat and put my bag down to claim it. I scarfed down my fries and burger, then walked literally 10 feet across the hall to throw away my trash. When I turned around to go back to my seat, I saw the same woman who was now sitting in the seat where I'd left my bag. She moved my bag to the floor in front of her and was giving me this smug grin, thinking she'd won again. I was getting pretty defeated after losing 2 seats to this lady and losing sleep and patience, but it was time for action. I walked over to collect my things, and when I reached her, I looked her dead in the eyes. I raised my right hand, fingers spread, and hovered it right over her stomach. I looked down at my hand, then back into her eyes. I told her, completely straight-faced, that I had just cursed her baby. Then I turned around, walked across the hall, and sat down on the floor, staring at her intensely. Now, I don't believe in curses, and I definitely don't think I have any magical powers. But this woman believed it. Her face went completely blank, and she just started crying to herself when I sat there watching. When her husband came over to see what was wrong and she told him what I'd said, he instantly stormed over to me. He knocked the drink out of my hand, grabbed me by the collar, and got right in my face. He started calling me names and threatening me, but before he could finish his sentence, security guards grabbed him and detained him. The Federal Aviation Administration doesn't mess around with their security. One guard asked me why this man was angry, and I explained that his wife had taken my seat and I'd made a comment that upset him. I didn't mention exactly what I'd said. The officer asked for my name and identification and saw that I was a minor. He asked if I wanted to press charges. I told him yes, but that I also didn't want to miss my flight. He understood and let me go, then told the Southwest gate attendant to keep track of me in case they needed more information. This meant I got to board early, and I chose an aisle seat near the front so I could see if the woman would get on the plane. Since she'd been sitting in the same gate area as my flight, I figured she was going to Boise too. She never got on the plane. We took off without her. Halfway through the flight attendant came over and asked me if I'd really put a curse on the baby. I told her I didn't know any magic. 20 minutes later, the same flight attendant came back and told me that the couple had missed their flight. They'd have to buy new tickets to their final destination with another airline. With just 5 words, I cost this horrible woman and her abusive husband around $500. This happened about 10 years ago. My wife and I were getting married in Hawaii, and we decided to have a destination wedding. We had about 20 family members and friends flying out with us to celebrate. Since we booked such a large group, the airline was really nice to us. They gave my wife and me a free upgrade to first class as a wedding gift. We were so excited because we'd never flown first class before. Our seats were A and B in row 4, the window and aisle seats. The middle seats, C and D, had no windows, and E and F were on the other side. When we got on the plane, I was carrying our carry-on bags. When we got to row 4, there was already a couple sitting in our seats. I thought maybe they just made a mistake, so I politely told them I thought they might be in our seats and mentioned we were assigned to 4A and 4B. The woman looked up at me with this annoyed expression. She told us they were fine where they were and that we should find somewhere else to sit. I've never had someone just flat out refuse to move from seats that weren't theirs. I apologized and said these were our assigned seats, asking if they had their boarding passes so we could figure out where they were supposed to be sitting. Her husband or boyfriend just shrugged and looked out the window. The woman told us they liked these seats better and we could sit somewhere else. My wife was standing behind me looking embarrassed. I didn't want to cause a scene, especially since this was supposed to be the start of our wedding trip. I decided to get a flight attendant to sort this out. I found one near the front of the plane and explained what was happening. She came back with me to row 4 and asked to see their boarding passes. Karen grudgingly handed over their passes. The flight attendant looked at them and then at ours. The flight attendant told them they were actually supposed to be in row 1, seats C and D, and that we had row 4. She asked them to move to their correct seats. They refused again, this time being even ruder about it. The flight attendant told them they didn't have a choice and needed to move. They became very nasty, raising their voices and being completely unreasonable. I could see this was going to turn into a big scene. Since I knew their seats were also in first class, I offered to just swap seats with them. After all, these were free upgrades, so I didn't really care which first class seats we got. The flight attendant and the couple agreed that we were officially swapping seats. Everyone seemed happy with the solution, and the flight attendant was so nice that she made sure we got a glass of champagne first to celebrate. About 5 minutes after all this was settled, another couple got on the plane. It turned out the airline had double booked the seats we were originally assigned. The couple we had just swapped with was also part of a group package with free upgrades like us. But this new couple had actually paid full price for their first class seats, so they took priority. After some more arguing between the flight attendant and Karen, the couple we swapped with agreed to give up those seats. I was kinda shocked since first class was completely full at this point. Then the couple started moving their bags to the overhead compartments above our new seats in row 1. The flight attendant stopped them and pointed out that they had officially swapped seats with us. She told them there were seats available in coach that they could move to. This is when they completely lost it. They began yelling and screaming and being all around nasty people. The woman was throwing a tantrum like a child, and her husband was getting aggressive with the flight attendant. Eventually, the flight attendant had to get the captain, who came out and told them their choices were simple: go to coach or get another flight. They reluctantly went to coach, but the woman was bawling loudly the whole way down the aisle. Everyone in first class was staring, and I felt bad for the other passengers who had to deal with this drama. Everything seemed settled for a couple of hours. We enjoyed our champagne, had a nice meal, and I was starting to relax. Then about 2 to 3 hours into the flight, I was asleep when I felt someone grabbing me and trying to haul me out of my seat. I woke up confused and saw this old guy trying to physically remove me from my seat. I'm a pretty big guy, and this was someone much smaller and a lot more drunk than me, so it didn't take much to push him away. It turned out he was the father of the woman who we had swapped seats with earlier. I stood up to make sure I could protect myself if needed, and this crazy old man actually threw a punch at me. It was weak and barely grazed my arm, but you definitely shouldn't throw punches on a flight. Before I could even react, a guy who I'm pretty sure was an air marshal grabbed the old man and dragged him out of first class. I told my wife what had happened, and we both couldn't believe how crazy this family was acting. Things calmed down again for about 30 minutes. Then the daughter came rushing into first class again. She started yelling at the flight attendant and actually tried to fight her. She was screaming about how unfair everything was and how we had stolen their seats. The same air marshal guy walked over, grabbed her, and dragged her back to coach. The rest of the flight was, thankfully, peaceful. A few hours later, we landed at our destination in Hawaii. Normally, everyone rushes to get off the plane, but the captain announced that everyone needed to remain seated while the plane was parked. A small team of police officers boarded the plane and walked straight to the coach section. They removed both the daughter and her father in handcuffs. The other passengers were all talking about what had happened, and everyone seemed relieved that the crazy people were finally being dealt with properly. We ended up staying at the same hotel as their group. One of their wedding guests told one of our guests that both the father and daughter were stuck in jail for at least a couple of days. So while we were on the beach celebrating our marriage, they were sitting in Hawaiian jail cells. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.